a storybook story, but it's as real as the feelings I feel. My love is like a storybook story, but it's as real as the feelings I feel. It's as real as the feelings I feel.
Storybook Love. That's Mark Knopfler. There we go. And Willie DeVille. That, of course, is the love soundtrack or the love song from Princess Bride. Awesome movie. Love that movie. If you haven't seen it, it is an awesome, what we'd say, a cult classic from the 80s. It is a phenomenal movie. If you've never seen it, got an amazing cast. But anyway, beautiful song. More Than Five Senses. Oh my gosh, big stuff. I don't know what I'm calling this exactly, but it's in this line. It's in this place. It's in this realm of where we really need to, first off, let me back up a step. Wayne Dyer, been reading him. Real Magic is the book. He's got a section in here called the Spiritual versus Non-Spiritual Beings, what he calls the Spiritual Dozen. I'm going to probably do a few shows and just grab one or two of these at a time and kind of talk through them. So I've got one of them that I really, truly think is a big difference. Now, a lot of times I've talked about how law of attraction, how what we think, what we say, what we feel, what we do, all that stuff, right? That's what creates, it's what we're vibrating at, it's what we're attracting, all that. And I've also talked about, and I've done a show on it, that there's the 12 spiritual laws. So there's actually other laws at work other than just the law of attraction. The law of attraction is one of 12. So to add a little, I do think it's important to kind of try to understand the bigger picture. I do think it makes a difference when it comes to manifesting. I do think that's partially why, in some regards, some aspects of manifesting are not terribly difficult for me. But specifically, and I think this is kind of a key one too, it's that whole spiritual versus non-spiritual. It's when we are actually acting from that soul aspect of who we are, from that part of ourselves that is in heaven now and will be in heaven after and was there prior to getting here. It's that part of us that knows why we're here. It's the part of us that chose to come here. It's the part of us that is trying to grow and explore and become a better person. And generally speaking, when you make differences here, you make enormous differences when it comes to our manifesting abilities, if you will. It becomes significantly easier. So when we make these spiritual bumps up in life, suddenly we're at a new plateau, right? We're heading, I guess it looks more real if I go like that. We're heading kind of in a more of a flat, straight line. And that can bump again. But again, once you've made that bump up, once you're up a notch, you don't ever go down. So you kind of just keep riding at this newer, higher vibration, this higher energy, this higher frequency. From there, it becomes significantly much easier to manifest stuff. So let's try to get into the skinny of this, and it shouldn't take too terribly long. The non-spiritual being lives exclusively within the five senses, believing that if you cannot see, touch, smell, hear, or taste something, then that something simply doesn't exist. The spiritual being knows that beyond the five physical senses, there are other senses we use to experience the world from. So a lot of us might very well be looking at our here and now, some of us, right? And we're realizing that what we can see, what we can hear, what we can touch, taste, right? All that stuff, it doesn't exist. There's no five senses, no five sensory input, if you will. There's nothing that's showing to any of my five senses that things are in process, that things are happening, that things are better than they apparently seem right now. And we frequently talk about how you can't really look at right now as any sort of indication as to where you're heading. And I say that from the standpoint because most everybody does use the five senses when they're defining that. Now, I'm not saying everybody is operating solely from the five senses. There's probably lots of you out there that are operating with these additional senses. But most of us, when we look at our right now, we fail to use the other senses. We only look at the five. And oftentimes the five are very physical. They're very right now. And they're very here and now in this space-time continuum, right? They're very, if you're trying to manifest something and it's not in your life yet, your physical senses are not going to see it. But these non-physical senses, what I'm going to call feeling, I mean, it's certainly been called extrasensory perception. So there's that sort of intuition. There's psychic kinds of concepts. There's your third eye, where you can see things that are physically not there. Essentially, an easy way to look at it is there's basically an extrasensory version of all your senses. And I don't exactly know if feeling is maybe closer to like the extrasensory version of touch. Maybe that's kind of how that comes. But you might hear words sometimes. You might just start talking and been tripping out on what you actually say. Like there's different ways that this will manifest itself in your life. But when we look at our right now and we look at it through the eyes of these other sensory, these senses, these extra senses, right? When we look at it from that standpoint, well, actually, sometimes, especially if we're really dialed in and in a good mood and not being overly negative, when we're coming from that place, we can oftentimes feel what's coming. We can sense it from that undertone level. We are using those extra senses to help identify what's going on in our world, to help pay attention to the energies that we're feeling and experiencing, to pay attention to the undercurrents, right? You look at a river, right? And the river's going down, and for the most part, the surface seems reasonably smooth. But when you go to try to walk across it, the current underneath the surface is significantly strong and can pull you under. Same with, like, say, riptide, for example, at the beach. For those of you that have been to the ocean, right? The calm, I mean, it looks, a little rough. You got waves and stuff, but when you're actually under that, it's tumultuous. You're turning you over. It'll suck you out. It'll very powerful. So again, things can look really calm and serene on the surface, but then when you kind of get underneath it, there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening. There's a lot at work. There's a lot between you and your specific person, for example, or maybe your soon-to-be new boss, or maybe this new job or this new car or this new house. There are things that are in process, and when you can still the mind, when you can shut down all the negative chit-chat, all the dribble-drabble that comes out of our brains sometimes, and learn to realize, wow, no, there's things feel good. We just had that awesome experience the other day. They texted me a couple days ago. I feel like I can feel them right now, like just the level of love. Like, yeah, I know they haven't texted me. It doesn't matter. I can totally feel them. This stuff is happening. This stuff is occurring. This is in process. You can feel it when you stop looking with just your five senses and start to look with your heart, basically, because that's really, I think, one of the things that guides us. And that kind of brings up one of my really big key points on this. Your gut feeling, which in my opinion is still a sixth sense, it's a very physical one, tends to deal with physical reality, is in line with your third chakra, right? You have your first, second, and third. Those are your base chakras, your root chakras, your root chakras, number one. But those are your base chakras. And again, all chakras are awesome. They're all super helpful and important. But there's a very significant step that occurs when you finally awakened your fourth chakra. When you go from the third chakra to your fourth chakra. And the third chakra is like that gut level, right? And you get a very gut feeling. So when you've really gotten your base chakras kind of in line, these are some of the experiences you'll start to have. You'll start to feel things in your gut. You'll have that sense like, I just don't trust this person, or I don't think we should go down this road, or, or, oh no, we should definitely do this. This feels right. This is going to be good. I'm a little nervous about it, but it's that good kind of nervous, right? So it'll help you and lead you in those directions. Again, extrasensory. There's no what you see, smell, taste, touch in your stomach, right? But it's picking these things up. You feel it. When you get up to the fourth chakra, now it's more of a feelings, a little more from the heart. So you might feel things more like love. You might feel things more like what others are potentially thinking, or just you feel like you're in sync and in vibe with life, and so you just kind of feel good about everything. You just feel like everything's in sync. So again, there's a big difference between how awakened we are in our process as far as what we're going to experience. I've had people hit me up where, I've been thinking about my SP. Do they feel it too? It's like, I really don't know your SP, frankly. And I don't know exactly what you're sending to them. Yeah, the thought transmission definitely goes to them. Do they feel it? I don't know. It depends. Depends how awake they are. Depends if they're busy at the time. Depends if they're asleep. I mean, their higher self always hears it, but most people are typically, seems like they're trying to hit me up for, do they consciously know it's happening? And it's like, in most cases, probably not. I mean, it's really safer answer. But when you're dealing with people that have an awakened sense about them or are more awakened than most people, those individuals will tend to feel things, will tend to have that understanding that they'll pick it up. They'll, whatever it is, their extrasensory perception will kick into play, and they'll start to notice things too. So really, one of the key things that I think is the big takeaway from this, 2 points, I guess. One, We are spiritual beings. We are here with a spiritual aspect to us that is super important, and in fact, probably more important than a lot of the stuff that we're trying to manifest. We're trying to manifest physical things in the physical life. Now, relationships, definitely good. They're going to help us, especially spiritually. But from the big picture, the spiritual aspect of life and that growth and that development and that evolution generally far outpaces any of the other stuff. So a lot of you that are listening to my channel probably, for the most part, fall into this category. So embrace that spiritual aspect. You will benefit from it, I promise you. The more that you embrace that aspect, the more these other things truly, truly start to get easier. I can talk about them until I'm blue in the face, but when we're having constant struggles internally, I'm angry, and blah, 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 right? And you've got these things, that's hurting the process. When you evolve spiritually, those moments tend to lessen. I tend to spend far less time being grumpy than I was prior to any of these experiences, right? Far less time. And the more time you spend in a better, generally feeling environment, manifestation happens way faster, way faster. So it's all those things that we kind of need to evolve through that really tend to make the biggest differences. So we are spiritual people. Remember that. It's so important. And on top of that, we have these extra senses. There's additional information that a lot of us don't necessarily pay attention to. When you're looking at your right now and trying to figure out how things are going, I know just yesterday I said generally you don't want to look to your right now, and still, as a good rule, you really don't. But I always say that from the caveat standpoint of most people are using their five senses when they're trying to estimate what's going on right now. If you are getting the feeling, or if you're starting to pay attention to the feelings, you're actually getting into a place where you'll start to notice the good things that are happening into your life before you see evidence. Maybe even before you see a sign, you'll feel it from them. You'll feel the connection with your SP or something. Those six senses are worth listening to and will help you immensely and are really important in our evolution, in our growth, and what we're here to try to do. So when we can embrace that and truly accept it and walk into our manifesting knowing this, well, we start to have a lot more power in what we're capable of doing. I hope this helps. Hope this makes a difference. Going out with a great song from Extreme. It's called More Than Words. It's right here on Dan RadioStyle.
How you feel more than words is all you have to do to make it real. Then you wouldn't have to say that you love me, 'cause I